Well, welcome everyone. And to those of you here, those of you on Zoom, to our fourth episode of our journey along the Lasallian Way. And this, as you know, is a series that we're exploring the five principles anchored in St. John Baptist de La Salle that provide a way for us to understand the Lasallian approach to education, but bigger than that, kind of the Lasallian approach to living a spiritual life. And we're doing this, of course, in solidarity with our new partner in ministry on campus, De La Salle North Catholic High School. Our Lasallian expression today comes in the form of a call response, typically. So it would be typically, the leader might say, live Jesus in our hearts, and all of you would say, forever. And it's often twinned with the other call response that we alluded to in episode 1. We didn't exactly practice it, but the leader might say, St. John Baptist de La Salle, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. I learned all of this years ago when I worked for St. Mary's Press, a Christian Brothers publisher in Minnesota. But I learned how to do it. I didn't learn really what's underneath it and behind it. So those are the things that we're exploring. And we're happy to welcome you, Pam Wood, to be with us today. Pam is a counselor at De La Salle, has been there for 15 years. And so Pam, welcome.
Thank you.
And please fill out the introduction of yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi. So I was raised Catholic, and my mom was Catholic. My dad was not Catholic, so it's just kind of a little bit watered down. You know, I decided to go off to a Jesuit college, and it was very exciting to me because I grew up in a very small town in Wyoming. And so I ended up.
Where?
Cody, Wyoming.
Cody. Okay, I grew up in Sheridan.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Neighbors.
And then what Jesuit school?
So I ended up at Creighton University
in
Omaha, which was a big, exciting city to me. So that was fun. Oops. I turned this off. So, you know, it was a really powerful experience for me to go to. You all have to hear all of our.
We do hear all the announcements through the emergency system. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just really glad I went to a liberal arts college. The Jesuits really gave me a well-rounded education, and I had some pretty powerful, like what I call what's the word? Just conversion experiences. And one of them, I think the first one really was my junior summer. I went off to the Dominican Republic, and the Jesuits had a program down there, a medical program. And I thought I was going there because I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And so a bunch of students went down there for the whole summer. And then doctors and nurses and dentists and pharmacists rotated in for 2 weeks and helped supervise us having a medical clinic. And just being outside of the US and seeing how the developing world lives. The Jesuits were very intentional about having us each live in houses alone so that we had to learn the language and have encounters with people that lived there. It just was a total conversion experience. I never saw the world the same after I came back. And they taught us a lot of liberation theology, and they really instilled in us I kind of went down there wanting to help the poor and came back realizing that I had a ton to learn from them. And so that was a really powerful experience. And I had been thinking maybe after college, I'd do the Peace Corps or something, but I really loved the community aspect of that and the spiritual aspect. So I did the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, and that's what brought me out here.
Okay.
So I was, do most of you know what the Jesuit Volunteer Corps is? It's a year-long program. Now the people that do Jesuit Volunteer Corps, JVC, are also AmeriCorps volunteers, but at the time we weren't. But it's a year of living in community. The 4 values are community, social justice, spirituality, and simplicity. And so we all, 8 of us lived together in a house in Yakima, and I worked with at the mental health agency, and everybody did different work, and we processed it together in our weekly community night. And I just really fell in love with, especially living in community. That was the thing that really was powerful for me, similar to the experience in the Dominican Republic. So there was a bunch of people after JVC who wanted to continue to experiment living in community, and we all moved to Portland and lived in houses together, continued to explore our faith and social justice and all that. So I went on and, I was getting my master's degree in counseling. I ended up getting it in art therapy and worked at different places. But then, and I never thought I'd work in a school, because my friends who were school counselors would say, all you ever do is schedule. You don't ever get a chance to do counseling. And but then I heard about the St. Andrew Nativity School, and they were looking for a counselor, their first counselor, and they really wanted it more of to be a personal counselor. So I ended up working there for about 3 years before I came to De La Salle, which is a very similar school, but just for high school students. So
Nativity. I got to talk to Oscar.
Right.
Nativity School is more for younger students.
It's a middle school that's also created for kids who can't afford a private middle school, and it's the whole design is, they have them all over the U.S. Is to catch kids who have fallen through the cracks and really try to bring them up to speed so that they could go to a college prep high school if they wanted. So it was a great place, but then I really wanted to work with high school students. So I came here, and 15 years later, I'm still here. And I just keep getting called back. I mean, the students are amazing. The kind of staff that are attracted to work at a place with such a strong mission always are wonderful to work with. And, I always think, oh, do I want to go off and do art therapy before I, end up retiring? But I just, keep getting called back to the mission. I just love the work.
Pam, you were telling me before we started that you actually get to do real counseling with kids rather than just trying to schedule them and get their class schedules all organized and such.
Right.
Say a little bit more.
I'm not sure, but I've always thought that it was probably not Powell's doing. He was the first employee of De La Salle. He was the first president, and so at the time, they all worked so you've already met Edward Zuchik, and I don't know if you've ever met Tim Joy, but several of them worked at La Salle. And back in the 90s, the Pope asked all of the orders to re-examine their charism, right? And the charism of St. John Baptist de La Salle is to educate those who can't afford an education. And he did that, hundreds of years ago. And
let me just clarify. You said that Matt and Tim Joy
and
Edward worked at La Salle.
Right.
And what I think you're referring to is La Salle in Milwaukee.
Yeah, La Salle Prep. And so in the process of re-examining their charism, they were like, right now we serve a lot of middle and upper middle class white kids. Our neighborhood has kind of grown up around us, and it's changed. So how can we meet the kids that have such a need for a faith-based college prep education? And so they dialogued with people at the time. North Portland was the area where that was being underserved, and they said, could we have a shuttle that brings you down here? And could we give scholarships? And they said, no, we need a school in our neighborhood. And North Catholic burnt down in the 70s, and we need a new Catholic school here. So they were like, that sounds great, but how are we gonna pay for it? And that's when they discovered the Christo Rey model, which is the working model that helps reduce their tuition down to a third or less of what the rest. So anyway, I really feel like he knew that the population that we were serving, and that he just really believed in counseling. I think he had actually been a counselor at one point at La Salle. And so he, from the beginning, wanted 2 full-time counselors, even though, at that time, well, probably not at the very beginning, but our our goal was to have between 275 and 325 students. So, you know, if I worked at a public school, I'd probably have 400 just for me to serve. And so that's something I've always appreciated, is that they've really always believed in counselors and the way that our students really, they live really stressful lives. There's just a lot of things going on, and everything from listening to them, helping them find resources, uniform assistance, whatever it is, we're kind of like counselors and social workers all at the same time. So yeah, I've always really felt like De La Salle believed in what we did.
So live Jesus in our hearts forever. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And what does that mean to you?
So I every time we say that, we start with, let us remember we're in the holy presence of God. That we start with that and we end with live Jesus in our hearts forever. So to me, it's all together. It's just this, I grew up Catholic, and I do love the church. And I also, there's things that are hard for me about the church. And so to me, the being at a Lasallian school, it's like this gentle form of Catholicism that I just really appreciate. Being reminded that we're in the presence of God. Like live Jesus in our hearts to me means remember who Jesus really was. Jesus wasn't popular. Jesus saw what the poor needed. Jesus listened to people that were ostracized by community, that we're called into a relationship. That's the biggest thing for me about a Lasallian institution is he would always, St. John Baptist de La Salle would always say you have to touch their hearts before you can teach their minds. And there's just a relational approach. And so being in relationship with students is what Jesus would have done, and really hear what their life is and what their needs are, instead of like what us, privileged white people think that they need, and just to really hear and be converted by them. That's what it means.
Yeah, nice. I like that phrase you use, a gentle Catholicism.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's attractive.
Yeah, it's not dogmatic. It's not righteous. It's very relational and gentle.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
We had a whole retreat day for our leaders just this last Saturday, and one of the big things that emerged from that was we need to not get back to, but to remember our relational roots, and what we're all about is relationship. So
yeah.
So I think we resonate with that.
I don't believe we could have moved into a better neighborhood. I had just by chance moved into to the Columbia Eco Village about 2 years before, or maybe a year before we found out we would be moving here. And I just feel like, our population was changing. We were in North Portland, and all of a sudden we weren't even a Title I school anymore because the neighborhoods were gentrifying. And even though our students were, still 60 to 70% free and reduced lunch and all that. But moving here, I had really gotten to know how Living Fully has just tried to really keep this neighborhood from, falling to the gentrification. And I know you all have played a big part in that. I just feel that so many of our students live right along here at Killingsworth, and just really feel like it's a great place for us to move. And it will keep being able to serve the community because of that commitment that Coley has to its residents. So
we learned from Dave Gregory, episode 1, that quite a number of students and their families at De La Salle are not Catholic. Mm-hmm. Do you think they get this? Do they know they're at a Catholic school, and how do they know that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, every morning we say usually we say a prayer over the loudspeaker. Now we're still getting the loudspeaker and all that figured out, but
as you can hear, it's not quite in working order yet.
But based on the 14 years before we moved here, every morning we have a prayer that starts the way we just did. And then every class also starts with prayer. So that's one thing. And oftentimes they are allowed to do intentions, which, many of them come from faiths that, or maybe even their families aren't people of faith, but they learn what other people have on their hearts, and they pray for each other. And that's really sweet. there's also a theology class that they go to
Yeah.
for 4 years. So I think our teachers are really great at teaching, starting with Dave, 9th grade, of just like, how can a faith, make you a better person? What is your faith? Let's make your faith better. And he'll say, whatever your faith is, we're here to make it better. And then, they learn world religions, and they learn about social justice in junior year. So, so in all those ways, and then we have some powerful retreats, and they learn about this St. John Baptist Lasallian freshman theology, I think. So I think that's something that's strengthened over the years I've been there. When I first started, I wasn't, I was still learning, but it feels like we've gotten stronger and stronger. And I know Oscar grew up in as a Lasallian, so that's really important to him. So, yeah.
And I welcome your thoughts and comments, those of you here, and as well as on Zoom. How would you advise us who aren't at a Lasallian school, and we're not totally immersed in it, but how would you advise us on embracing these principles, or at least the expressions? As you say, let us remember we are in the holy presence of God.
Yeah.
With Jesus in our hearts forever.
Yeah. Well, I think having this forum is a great way to do it. Just building a relationship between the school, and it's really great for me to see you all. So I think that's a big one. And then, I know that you all already have a history of being in relationship with the community. And like I said, listening to the people that live here, where this is their home and what the needs are, and, not going in, imposing what we think are the solutions, but hearing what's needed. I guess that's what I would say. And, if you have an opportunity to come help in our academic resource center and tutor, there's ways to get to know the students. And I'm sure through our Lasallian Youth Ministry, eventually our social justice, once COVID is past us, if it ever is, we've got a really strong service and social justice component, and they have to have service hours. So I'm sure we could probably collaborate on things like that.
Yeah, we've been looking for some opportunities there, and our Care for Creation team has been in touch with Sarah and a couple of others about making some connections with your green team or the people involved there.
Great.
Sandy.
So these 5 principles, do you start classes out by saying them and then end with them?
No, we start with the way that we pray. The Lasallian way of praying is to say, let us remember we are in the holy presence of God. So that's what calls us to prayer.
Okay.
Then there's a prayer of some kind. And then we end with St. John Baptist de La Salle, pray for us, live Jesus in our hearts forever. Okay. So, and then the 5, I feel like the live Jesus in our hearts is probably the faith in, I'm trying to remember, the 5 Lasallian, we have some banners that aren't up yet, but are usually hanging in our main hall: inclusive community, quality education, faith in the service of God. I knew it would come to me. What are the other 2? I'm trying to remember, but they'll come to me. So some really amazing values. And there's also kind of a motto that is now on our commons, which is enter to learn, lead to serve. And the students definitely talk about that when they come back and speak at, we had a big fundraiser on Friday night and somebody spoke to that. Also at graduation, they come back and speak, and they almost always remember that and have really embodied that by the end. So, yeah.
What else are you thinking? Thoughts, comments?
Thinking about, let us remember that we're always in the presence of God would be a nice liturgical thing that, the liturgy, that the Liturgy Commission might want to consider. Maybe not every Sunday, but, there's a reason to say that. It has a special ring to a lot of us. And just another little link that wouldn't cost any money.
Yeah, totally.
Be easily incorporated.
Yeah.
We started the administrative council with, let us remember we're in the holy presence of God.
Yeah.
This is a phrase. I thought, I like it. I love that phrase.
Those of you on Zoom, can you hear at least some of the conversation? Some people are nodding yes, others no. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
It could be louder. It could be louder.
Judy, you have a thought?
Yeah, I was wondering, I know you have a very good graduation rate of like 94, 98%. Do the kids who start their freshman year usually go all the way through, or do you have new students joining in as time goes on? So they
Yeah,
might
so
come and join.
That statistic that you cited is more our college acceptance rate. So of the people that make it to senior year, it's usually 98 to 100%. The average is 98 over the
That's
20 years.
extraordinary.
Yeah, get accepted to college. So that is one of the things that we really have been trying to work on the last 10 years is we will start with 100 and we'll end with like 65 seniors. And sometimes that's because they move. Sometimes it's because, you know, they were underserved by their middle schools and just couldn't keep up with the rigor. So then when we saw, like, it's kind of the after the first semester of sophomore year, we would lose a lot of students. There was another Cristo Rey school in Wisconsin who had started an academic resource center, and Mr. Joy, who was our principal at the time, went to visit, and we decided that we would bring an academic resource center to De La Salle. And ever since then, our ability to keep those struggling students has really increased. We have a full-time coordinator, our judge volunteer works there.
Andy is going to be with us next
Yes,
Monday.
he's amazing.
Andy Poundstone directs the Academic Resource Center.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he coordinates paid and volunteer tutors every period of the day. So students can be pulled out of classes, students can have ARC as a class. And that's really, really helped because we have students who just frankly were underserved by our public schools, you know, and, you know, others that have gone to Holy Redeemer or Holy Cross all 8 years and are like ready for college level education, you know, but you know, by junior year, they're all kind of brought to the same level, and junior and senior year are very challenging years. So that's why I always say, like, tutoring is a great way to get involved, just for 1 hour a week or more if you want to, but it's a great way to get to know our students. We even have some people come in and do a little 15-minute organizational tutoring, where they help them get organized and plan out their week. And so we have volunteers that come in and do all sorts of stuff like that.
Hey, click on that.
Yeah.
Might be a new vocation for some of us, huh?
That's right.
Yeah. Mary Ann?
Yeah, well, this is kind of a personal, thought. My husband and I, we have tutored at Community Transition School right up the street for, 12, 13 years, and not able to this year because of COVID, you know, the last year and this year. How do our students fare? I know, you know, several of our students come to De La Salle, and it's our hope that, yeah, they do get individual tutoring because, like you said, they come from really harsh backgrounds and transportation. Everything's just really difficult. And
I always work really closely with those students, right? Because they have experienced homelessness at some point in their life.
Yeah.
And, you know, it used to be that we would lose them a lot of times, but then I really feel like since the Academic Resource Center, it's really helped. And, you know, I think De La Salle is a great place for them if they can handle it academically, because there's so much more of a community sense, just like community transition school. So, yeah. Thank you for your work there. I know a lot of them that are doing really well right now. So
great.
Yeah.
Aurora, Aurora graduated last year and is a freshman there. So just,
yeah.
Time for one more question. Pam does have a class at 1:05, so we got to get her over
As long as
there.
I walk out at 1, I'm good. I have 6 minutes.
This isn't a question, just a comment. I do know Tim Joy. I had his kids in school.
Okay.
Christ the King next to LaSalle.
Right.
Just so fortunate to have.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That tells me a lot about your school.
Yeah. Oh, he was our principal for, I think, at least 10 years. Just amazing. And he hasn't left. He's a senior English teacher still, part-time. So
Reen and my wife and I were actually kind of disappointed when Tim became principal at De La Salle, because our son was just going into school at LaSalle, and we were looking forward that Luke would have Tim as a teacher,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, he's a great teacher.
So, last question.
Okay.
Pam, what would you advise both us and your school on entering into this relationship together?
You know, we haven't had our first mass over here, but you know, one of the things that's been hard, we have students that come from churches that feel really different than the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is very quiet and, you know, docile, and they're used to clapping and being really loud. But anyway, so I always think about, because my dad wasn't Catholic either, so I would always think about what's he thinking when he comes to our church. We're kneeling, we're praying quietly, and we'd go to his church, and they had more of a sense of community because they talked more. And this is, you know, things have changed since then, but I feel like if we could establish a relationship with a priest that kind of got to know the community, because we used to have them in our auditorium, and we would have a different priest every time, and sometimes they were not good at all with teenagers, and sometimes they were. And so to be able to be in this space and to maybe meet some of you, and I mean, I don't know if you could all come to the, I don't know when we're going to have those.
If you get word on when the next school mass is, let me know.
Yeah.
And I'll probe that as to who actually would be invited.
Yeah. Or things like, I think you have a food or clothes closet and stuff like that. You know, having our social justice, our service volunteers getting to know you on a more personal, I think that would be great.
I actually did get word on Saturday that some De La Salle students are helping with our pantry.
Nice.
On Monday nights, is that right?
That's great. Yeah,
So,
because every Monday afternoon we have some kind of service.
And thank you for the altar.
The senior class Spanish. Senior Spanish class did
An ofrenda?
a day of the altar for
Nice.
us. Yeah. So.
Great. Yeah, so maybe things like that, we could blend more.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of that, I was watching BBC News this morning and from Mexico City, and that's huge there.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had taken a closer look at that yesterday before leaving, and that was what was happening there.
Yeah.
And that was really neat.
Yeah. Beautiful. Love it.
Our time is up. Pam has to get on. Pam, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
with us
thank you for
today.
having me.
Appreciate
I
it
appreciate
very
that.
much. Thank you all for joining us next week, episode 5, Andy Poundstone, teaching mind, touching hearts.
Nice.
So please join us.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Pam.
Thank you.